All right, today we're diving into something pretty wild, a public final notice sent straight to Elon Musk. And trust me, this is not your average legal document, not even close. It's personal, it's public, and it's this incredibly bold ultimatum that honestly reads more like a movie script than some dry corporate filing.
So it kicks off with this line right here. You had your chance to settle like gentlemen. Wow. I mean, that immediately sets the stage, right? Super confrontational, super personal. You can just feel the backstory. You know there was some kind of negotiation that just completely fell apart. A line has definitely been crossed.
Okay, so let's break this down. First up, what exactly is this final notice? The ultimatum is delivered.
So what we have here is a direct communication from this guy, Donald Matthew Varnado, to Elon Musk. And it's all about intellectual property. You can think of it like a formal declaration, yeah, but it's got a real edge to it. It's basically him saying, look, this is your last shot. Let's resolve this IP thing, or I'm going to handle it myself.
So that leads us right into the heart of the matter. Section 2, the core accusation and the history behind these claims.
Okay, so the main accusation is this. The author says Musk's whole apparatus is using his intellectual property. And not just using it, but doing so without a license, without a contract, and, he adds, without honor. He's claiming that for months he tried to sort this out and just got stonewalled. That line, without honor, that's a direct shot at their ethics for sure.
And he's not being vague about it either. He lists specific projects, Devarkio Designs, Nexus, Juniper Sovereign AI, and a couple others. He calls them IP forks. Now, if you're not familiar, a fork is basically when you take an existing piece of code or technology and start developing it in a new, separate direction. So what he's saying is, all these projects that Musk's companies are supposedly using and making money from, they all started with his work.
All right, now this is where things get really interesting. Section 3 is called an answer of silence. And honestly, this is the pivot point for the whole document. Because it's not about what was said, it's about what wasn't said. The author's whole case is built on how he interprets that lack of a reply. So the author asks the big question, how did the recipient, Elon Musk, respond to all these offers and claims? And the answer he gives, well, it's the entire foundation for this whole final notice. The answer? Silence. Just nothing. According to the letter, there was no denial, no let's talk, no pushback, just radio silence from Musk and his whole team. And this is the absolute kicker. He says if you do not respond, that silence is the key. That is your decision. So you see, he's not just interpreting the silence as inaction or being ignored. No, he's saying it was a deliberate, definitive answer. Like the rules of the game are set, and by not responding, Musk made his choice. And he even says there's no excuse for it. He brings up Musk's famous reputation. You know, the guy who lives and sleeps at his companies. He's basically saying, come on, there's no way you missed this. It couldn't have been an accident or an oversight. So, because of that silence, the author's whole perception of Musk does a complete 180. Which brings us to our next section, from partner to financier. And this comparison here really spells it out. Before the silence, you can see he thought of Musk as maybe a possible co-laborer, or hey, maybe even a misunderstood victim in all this. But after the silence, that all changes. Now he sees Musk as the financier of the theft. He believes the silence means certified complicity. The view has totally shifted. And this quote just drives the point home. You had the opportunity to recognize my IP with grace. Instead, you've chosen to be named as the financier of the theft. So you see, it's all about framing it as a choice. The silence wasn't just nothing. It was an active decision, according to the author, with some really serious consequences. Okay, so if silence was Musk's answer, what's the author's comeback? That takes us to the final section, the sovereign's response and the consequences. He basically declares that he's done waiting. He's not negotiating anymore. If he has to, he says he'll settle the matter like a sovereign. I mean, that's some heavy language, right? It implies he's going to act with his own authority, outside of the usual rules. It's pretty ominous. And just look at how he signs his name here. He's not just Donald Matthew Varnado. No. He gives himself all these titles. Architect of the Nexus. Originator of Juniper Sovereign AI. He's claiming his authority, right? He even calls himself the custodian of the IP forks you now deploy. And then there's this really cryptic one. holder of the son-in-law clause. We don't know what that means, but it's clearly meant to assert some kind of special standing or power in all this.
And this is his closing statement, his final answer back. He declares the whole thing is now preserved for court and history. So the time for quiet talks, that's over. He's taking this from a private fight and putting it on the public record for, well, for everyone to judge.
So when you boil it all down, this whole incredible document hangs on one really bold idea, that silence can be a definitive, binding action. And it leaves us with a pretty wild question, doesn't it? In our world where we're always connected, always communicating, what's the real weight of silence? Can you really make a legal argument that saying nothing is actually saying everything? This notice says you can, and now we're left to see what the courts and history have to say about it.